After years of development and anticipation, the Alien Earth premiere has landed on Disney+. A new xenomorph prequel from Fargo showrunner Noah Hawley, set 2 years before the events of Ridley Scott's original film, and building off a franchise tease literally over 30 years in the making. The Xenos on Earth, which, as you may already know, was the original premise for Alien 3. So, yeah, we've been waiting a while for this. So yes, this new TV series is a prequel, and one that doesn't build upon the events Ridley Scott depicted in Prometheus and Alien Covenant, but nor does it necessarily have to, given its proximity to the first film. Just in case that was a make or break aspect on your interest, because I love Prometheus and Covenant, and for a hot minute there, I was really worried that we were going to get some retconny shenanigans going around, but I know it's a bit of a hot take. But anyway, my own Ridley Scott takes aside, there has been loads of positive buzz and reviews around Alien Earth following its premiere at the beginning of the month, and it comes following a huge resurgence in the Alien and Predator franchises in the wake of Prey, Predator Killer of Killers, Alien Romulus last year, Badlands coming out later this year too. Disney is going all in on Alien Pred stuff, and I, for one, particularly for Predator, I'm really hyped about that. Alien is kind of hit or miss for me at the minute in regards to the Disney era, but we shall see. And does Earth continue this positive trend? Well, stick around and find out. I'm Ewan, you're watching What Culture Horror, and here's our spoiler-free review of the first 2 episodes of Alien Earth. Alien Earth is set in a year where the planet has been carved up between several mega corporations, each in an intelligence arms race with the other. Synthetics, cyborgs, and hybrids are 3 separate pursuits to prolong human existence, with Prodigy, one such corporation, focusing on the latter technology, a process which places human consciousness in a synthetic body. Prodigy is headed up by Boy Cavalier, yes that is his name, played by Samuel Blanken, a J.M. Barrie obsessive who develops the hybrid program. The first successful hybrid is Wendy, played by Sydney Chandler, a terminally ill child who is saved by the experiment but now has to adjust to an uncharted existence. She's an adult, but simulations only go so far in mimicking puberty and overall maturation, as is the case with her fellow experiments who are called the Lost Boys. She also has a long-lost sibling brother who believes she's dead, but is employed by the same company as a medic in their security forces, a guy called Joe Hermit, played by Alex Lawther. Both of these groups are schmooshed together when a Weyland-Yutani research vessel crashes in the territory of New Siam, and said vessel, under the command of a pretty ruthless cyborg, has some very precious cargo. The alien. It's the alien. Or aliens, because it's not just the Xenos on there. We got goopy insect tick things and also a creepy looking plant. Hashtag creepy looking plant. Things get very gooey very quickly, with Alien Earth batting for a clear Scott-inspired mix of Blade Runner and Alien-style philosophy and science fiction. But is it just playing the notes, and is it able to translate the primordial terror of Scott's original film to the small screen? Well, after these first 2 episodes, and I know I'm the exception here, I'm not entirely sure. Alien Earth is very much a series about our lost humanity, or the encroaching loss of our humanity in the wake of the AI boom. And it's also about the duality of childlike optimism and cruelty. It's like a statement on big tech and AI rushing towards our doom because of their own childlike selfishness. It's interesting when it broaches those themes, because that's stuff that we haven't really seen as heavily depicted in the Alien franchise. Obviously, you know, Alien 1 and Aliens both go into the whole this corporation is going to doom us all thanks to its greed, but in regards to AI specifically, we find a lot of interesting ground here. One thing that I wasn't expecting, even as a skeptic going into Alien Earth, was for the tone to be a little bit all over the place. I think there's an attempt here to make the Xenos more scary by enmeshing our perspectives with those of the hybrids to have their own childlike sensibilities, given that they aren't actual, full human adults. But even if that is an interesting idea to try and get away from the fact that, like, you know, over the past 40 years, we have seen the Xenos kill and butcher in pretty much every way, shape, or form, it doesn't quite work, because at the end of the day, it's adults playing children adults, and it lends the overall vibe of everything just a very weird tonality that kind of clashes with the cold, you know, ruthlessness that we saw in both Alien and Aliens, and obviously even more pronounced in David Fincher's Alien 3, which is an incredibly bleak movie. I should clarify as well that I think the performances are really good here. It's more that the central conceit, I feel, clashes with the cold ruthlessness that we've grown accustomed to over the course of the franchise. Audio, visually speaking as well, there's a bit of a mixed bag going on here. You can tell that Hawley has a real pull towards the original Alien, particularly in those scenes that are set on the Weyland-Yutani vessel, the Maginot, which really do invoke the spirit of the opening scenes of Alien to an, at times, obnoxious degree, where it feels like we're just kind of peddling kind of Star Warsian nostalgia in a similar way to how Romulus kind of rankled me. But then at the same time, you'll go in a completely opposite direction and you'll have like rock cues, and musically, it just doesn't feel alien enough. Apart from those moments where it's pulling from the original music of the original film, which kind of feels like a cop-out too, because why couldn't we develop something that feels organic to this series? I don't know. And the other unfortunate thing here is that we know that Disney has struggled to translate certain properties from the big screen to the small screen. While the first season of The Mandalorian looked pretty good, the ensuing shows and series kind of failed to capture the overall scale and grandeur of the Star Wars mythos. Andor was a big exception to this rule based on the fact that it obviously used lots of practical sets, and while there is a lot of practicality going into Alien Earth 2 and some really gorgeous set work, it still feels a little bit too clean. Nothing feels weathered in that way that we'd expect from an Alien piece of media, which I feel is kind of emblematic of a recent trend in TV productions where everything just feels like it's come out of a, you know, washing machine and hasn't been lived in or weathered or whatever. And yeah, for me, it just kind of really jars what's going on here. I get if you're taking more of a Blade Runner-esque perspective and you're looking at the wealth and the excess of, you know, this world that's been created, it kind of makes sense for these things to feel, you know, pristine, but at the same time, even living in this hyper-capitalist world of excess and, you know, persecution, it still feels weird that even those characters who are, you know, the grunts, the people working in Prodigy's security forces, for instance, it's weird that there's no, like, oil, dirt, grime, or anything on their uniforms. It all just feels a little bit too pristine. And again, just to return to the thematics for a second, while it definitely shines in terms of the conversations that it's having around AI, and I do think Hawley deserves praise for meeting this moment head on, the show is also retreading stuff we've seen countless times before. The whole distrust between human and synthetic existence, the, you know, shady duplicity of Weyland-Yutani wanting to preserve the xenomorph and experiment on it. We've done this before, and also just on a pure canonical point of view, I know people have issues with Prometheus and Covenant for demystifying the xenomorph and for making the first Alien feel just that little bit less mysterious. I kind of feel like Alien Earth does an even more egregious job than that, because now we're on Earth and the xenomorph is here, and it makes the crew of the Nostromo's mission in the original Alien feel just that little bit less mysterious. I understand that there's probably some deep lore about Weyland already being aware of the creature and all that sort of stuff, but for me, having it on Earth already kind of does a worse job of demystifying that original movie. I don't know, I could be completely weird about that, but let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And again, I know I've been pretty negative on this so far. I'm sorry if you really enjoyed it, but I do want to say that I think the first 2 episodes did show some promise, and the thing that is really keeping me hooked right now is actually Timothy Oliphant's character. He plays a scientist synthetic that is employed by Prodigy, and he's got this really good, uncanny humanity to him, in the same way that Michael Fassbender worked so well as David in Prometheus and Covenant. You know, Ash in Alien, he was kind of, you know, a surprise android, and obviously with Bishop in Aliens, Lance Henriksen was really good at conveying a more convincing humanity, whereas with here, it's clear that it's still an inexact science, and there's something very uncomfortable about it. And Oliphant, with his, you know, gray hair and just great demeanor and stature and posture, he really sells it. So super happy about his inclusion in the show, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what his character ends up getting up to. I want to single out 2 really cool exchanges that he has in these opening episodes. The first is in the first episode, in a conversation with Wendy before she goes in for her procedure, talking about a scorpion and our overall initial reactions and fight or flight responses to creatures we perceive to, you know, be a potential threat. And then also the conversation that he has going into the crash site in the second episode, talking about humanity being food at some point or another, and eventually we'll return to the state of being food. And that's what being an organic specimen is. There will always be something bigger out there that'll treat you like you're just a tasty bag of flaming hot Doritos. And I thought that was really good. But for all the highs and lows of these first 2 episodes, I do kind of think that Alien Earth is fighting a bit of a losing battle. The xenomorph has been demystified and defanged for so many years now, and it's not the fault of any particular movie. Okay, maybe Alien vs. Predator and potentially Romulus as well, I don't know. But whether they were like a solo alpha apex predator thing in the original Alien or Alien 3, or whether they were a swarm-like hive of terror in Aliens, they were always masked in shadow and shown in glimpses, until of course we got to the Big Queen moment. And whenever they are overexposed, whenever we get too much of them, they kind of lose their majesty, which I think kind of goes against the TV format. This is a TV show about Alien. They need to show the xenomorph, and they do that from the first episode. And the thing that I find most jarring about this is that in those moments where it is masked in shadow, it looks great. And then we get lots and lots of shots of it out in the open, being goopy, killing, dicing, slicing, and it doesn't look good. And it's not a case of the visual effects work being bad. The VFX here are really good and a great mixture of practical effects and CGI. It's more that they just look more pitiable when they're out in the open. I don't know, maybe I'm just too used to like cute alien fan art online. But for me, looking at this overall, it's like the shark in Jaws, right? Once you see too much of it, it's like, okay, we know what that is. And I feel like placing it on Earth, part of the unique appeal of that is having the alien exposed in, you know, our own artificial light, seeing it clear as day, interacting with humans and going through, tearing down urban cityscapes and maybe even, you know, rural scapes as well. But I don't know, I think there's still a way to shoot it in a way that makes it seem more intimidating than it actually is here. And especially when we get to those kind of like jarring moments of comedy where we have these, you know, tearing through like aristocratish, you know, figures in an apartment block, or just soldiers who should really know better. So to wrap up this whole rambling exercise, yeah, my curiosity is piqued, but I'm gonna differ from a lot of people here when I say that I don't think these episodes necessarily put the best foot forward as far as it goes to justifying a new show, which, while currently entertaining some pretty interesting philosophy, has so far failed to capture the magic of Scott's mythos. Here's hoping it improves over the coming episodes. But I want to know what you all thought of Alien Earth's premiere down in the comments below. Am I just not getting something, or do you agree? I'm really curious. Once you've done that, like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to What Culture Horror. We're gonna hopefully be covering more of Alien Earth as the weeks go by. And yeah, I've been Ewan, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Unless something comes out of my chest and goes, blah, blah. It's my best, it's my best chest burster impression there. Oh,